I'm audible. Hello.
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, sir. Yes. Sir. Okay. Okay. So hello everyone. Good afternoon, all of you. So outside on the behalf of Department of Electrical Engineering of Tulsiramji Gaikwad Patil College of Engineering and Technology, I welcome our today's guest or today's expert, Dr. Irfan Ahmad sir, for the AICT sponsored Sparrow scheme expert lecture series. And today we discuss about the power electronics and its basic things of power electronics and various power electronics devices. In that, so first of all, I introduce our honorable expert of today's session, Dr. Irfan Ahmad sir. He is a assistant professor in electrical engineering department of National Institute of Technology, Durgapur. He has a experience of about 12 to 15 years in academics, as well as in the uh, engineering academics. So, sir has guided various UG as well as PG students, and sir has completed his PhD also in electrical engineering department or in electrical engineering stream. Sir has published various paper in national and international journal, and sir has uh, uh, various knowledge about the power electronics devices, and basically the his doctorate degree is in also in power electronics. So the sir's knowledge is very helpful for us for the preparation of gate examination. So without wasting a very much time, so I hand over the session to our expert, Dr. Irfan Ahmed sir. So Irfan Ahmed sir, please start the session, sir.
Okay, Chetan. Good afternoon, students. So, as Arshad has introduced, I'm also actually from Nagpur. Okay, I did my PhD from BNIT Nagpur, and I taught from 2004 to 2018 at Anjuman College of Engineering and Technology. And since the last 3 years, I've been here at NIT Durgapur. Is my audio clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Is this your first class, or there have been previous lectures on in this series?
Yes, sir. There are up to 3 to 4 course classes
Already
are
have been
there.
done.
Okay.
So, how do you want me to proceed? Do you want me to uh, explain some theory first, or should I directly go to gate questions?
So first somewhat theory and then go to questions.
Okay. 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 So I'll be presenting my screen. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, students, can you see the screen? I'll need the name of one student whom I can ask general questions like this. Who will
Achal.
be that? Achal. Okay.
Hello.
Huh.
Achal.
Yes, sir.
So response to the sir for any query.
Okay,
Okay.
sir. Okay.
Okay. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So, as far as gate is concerned, in case of power electronics, in general, there are two types of questions. One, you have single mark questions, 1 mark, and then you have 2 mark questions. You also have purely numerical based questions. There is no negative marking. Okay? You only have to answer. There is no negative marking on those questions. You have seen the pattern? Have you seen any gate question papers? Any of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So power electronics is one of the important subjects because there are a number of questions on power electronics. Okay. So the time is very less. I don't think anyone can teach entire GATE power electronics syllabus in 2 hours, but we'll try. Okay. I will give you a start and then you have to proceed. Okay. Okay. So there are a number of devices that are used in power electronics. The most prominent one is silicon controlled rectifier or SCR. Have you studied power electronics in your, has it been covered? Syllabus power electronics course is over. Which year are you right now?
Sir,
Third year?
final year.
Final. So you already studied power electronics?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So this is a simple revision then. Okay. So as far as I remember, SCR was there in detail in the Nagpur University syllabus, and I think it still is, correct? Okay. So as you already know, the SCR is a 4-layer PNPN, 3-junction, J1, J2, J3, 3-terminal, anode, cathode, and gate switching device. It is a switching device. There are 2 types, or all devices in, or all electronic devices can be used in 2 modes. One mode is the amplifier mode. You can use the device as an amplifier, or you can use it as a switch. Correct? For example, you have studied BJT, bipolar junction transistor, in your EDC subject. How did you use the BJT then? Did you use it as an amplifier or did you use it as a switch? Can anyone tell me? You have to answer me, you people. This is not going to be a monologue. I'm going to ask questions. Do you remember how did you use the BJT, as an amplifier or a switch? Do you know or
An amplifier, sir.
Yes, you used it as an amplifier. Whereas the same BJT, when it will be used in power electronics, it will be used as a switch. Okay. You all know what is a switch, correct? This is the power electronic switch. The important thing is you can see an arrow here. You know, what does this arrow signify? It signifies that current can flow only in one direction. Okay. This power electronic switch will allow the current to flow only in one direction. So when this switch is closed, the voltage, I'll write this VT and this IT. So when the switch is closed, it will behave like a short circuit. That means the voltage across the switch will be 0. And the current flowing through the switch will depend on the load. Whereas when the switch is open, the current flowing through the switch will be 0. And the voltage across the switch will depend on the circuit. That means the supply voltage as well as the load voltage. Okay, is this clear? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How do you use a BJT? How do you decide whether the BJT is working as an amplifier or as a switch? That will depend on the biasing. Okay. By controlling the BJT, or by controlling the base signal of the BJT, you can decide whether it will be used as an amplifier or it will be used as a switch. If you remember, the BJT had 3 modes: active region, saturation region, and cutoff region. So in EDC, you used it in the active region. That is why it worked as an amplifier. In power electronics, you'll use it in the cutoff region and in the saturation region. When you bias the BJT such that it is in the cutoff region, it will behave like an open switch. And when you bias it such that it is in the saturation region, then it will operate as a closed switch. Okay, am I clear? Okay, coming back to the SCR, silicon controlled rectifier. ठीक है, it is, the name silicon is there because it is made from silicon. Rectifier because it will allow the current to flow only in one direction, from the anode to the cathode. Reverse current flow is not possible. Why controlled? Why the word controlled? Yes, anyone? Or what is the difference between an SCR and a diode? Surely you know that. Difference between SCR and diode?
Diode is to gate is provided. Sir.
Your voice is not clear.
Sir, hello, sir.
Operational differences. Yes, yes.
Sir, diode have 2 terminals and SCR have 3 terminals.
Okay. Diode has 2 layers, SCR has 4 layers. The operational difference is that the diode, whenever it is forward biased, it will conduct. Whereas in case of an SCR, even when it is forward biased, you can control whether it will conduct or not. Correct? And that control is provided by the gate signal. This SCR will conduct only when you give a signal to the gate. If you do not give a signal to the gate, even if the SCR is forward biased, it will still not conduct. Okay? So that is one of the essential differences between a diode and an SCR. These are the static VI characteristics of an SCR. Once again, you have studied this, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I'll just go through it in 1 minute. The SCR has 3 regions. One is the reverse blocking region. When the SCR is reverse biased, it does not allow a flow of current. Okay? You go on increasing the voltage, the SCR will block that voltage, it will not allow the flow of current. The second region is the forward blocking region, where again the SCR will not conduct. When you increase the voltage, the SCR remains in the off state. And the third one is the forward conduction region, and the SCR is in the on state. So to go from the forward blocking region to the forward conduction region, you have to give a gate signal to the SCR. Okay, there are 5 methods of turning on the SCR, but the most prominent one is the gate current. Okay, the one method that is most widely used to turn on the SCR is to provide it with the gate current. Okay. In these 2 regions, the SCR is off, but in this region, the SCR is on. Okay, thyristor turn on methods, I'll skip. You already know the thyristor turn on methods, correct? Yes or no? Should I go through the thyristor turn on methods, or you already know?
No, sir.
You already know it now? I can skip this, yes or no? Should I teach this? Yes, Anchal?
No, sir.
No for what? I should not teach this, you are saying.
Sir, teachers.
Teachers, okay. Okay. The thing is, this is the structure of this SCR. 4 layers, PN, PN. 3 junctions, J1, J2, and J3. Outer P layer, you have the anode. Outer N layer, you have the cathode. And inner P layer, you have the gate. Now, when we are forward biasing the SCR, forward biasing means we are connecting anode to a positive terminal and cathode to a negative terminal. then this junction J1 is forward biased because P is connected to positive and is connected towards negative. The junction J3 is also forward biased because N is connected towards negative and P is connected towards positive. But the junction J2 is reverse biased because N is towards positive and P is towards negative. Now, if you have 10 junctions, and out of those 10 junctions, even if one junction is reverse biased, that device will not conduct. Okay? The analogy is, suppose you have 5 diodes and you apply a voltage like this. Will current flow here? The answer is no. Why not?
No, sir.
Because 4 diodes are forward biased, but 1 diode is reverse biased. Okay. Similarly, the 3 junctions are forward biased, but 1 junction is reverse biased. And this reverse biased junction will not allow the current to flow. So your device will remain in the off state, even though it is forward biased. Now, as you must have studied in analog electronics, whenever a junction is reverse biased, there is a depletion layer formed around that junction. Okay. Because this junction is reverse biased, there is a depletion layer across this junction. What is there in this depletion layer? On the N side, you have positive ions. And on the P side, you have negative ions. If you want this SCR to conduct, you have to break this depletion layer. How can you break that depletion layer? There are 5 methods available for that. The first method is forward voltage triggering. What do you do in forward voltage triggering? You go on increasing the voltage between the anode and the cathode. SCR voltage, SCR current. You go on increasing the voltage between the anode and the cathode. At some point, the depletion layer breaks down and your SCR starts conducting. Okay? This voltage is called the forward breakover voltage, VBO. And this method of turning on the SCR is called as forward voltage triggering. Did you use this method in practice? The answer is no, because it will damage the SCR. Okay? The second method is gate triggering. What do you do in gate triggering? You forward bias the SCR and you connect a voltage between the gate and the cathode and you close the switch. As soon as you close the switch, a current starts flowing in this direction. Current is flowing in this direction because this junction is forward biased, P towards positive and towards negative. So this diode starts conducting and current starts flowing like this. Current is flowing like this implies that electrons are flowing in the opposite direction. So these electrons help in breaking down this junction at a lower voltage than the forward breakover voltage. Okay? So for gate triggering, what you do, you provide a current to the SCR gate. And as soon as you provide this gate current, the SCR will turn on. Okay? This is the preferred method of triggering the SCR. Am I clear? Yes?
Yes, sir.
The third method of triggering the SCR is called as dV by dt triggering. Okay. What happens in dV by dt triggering? You will not provide any signal to the gate. You will simply forward bias the SCR. Now once again, J1 and J3 are forward biased, but J2 is reverse biased. Because J2 is reverse biased, there is a depletion layer across the junction J2. This is the depletion layer. Inside you have positive ions. P side you have negative ions. Okay. Do you see any capacitor here? Do you see any capacitor here? Anyone can answer. It's not that Anchal has to answer every time. Do you see any capacitor here? What is the capacitor? This is a parallel plate capacitor. What do you have in a parallel plate capacitor? On one plate you have positive charges, on one plate you have negative charges, and between these two plates you have a dielectric or an insulator. Do you see a capacitor here? Yes, there is a capacitor here. This is the capacitor, where on one plate you have negative charges, one plate you have positive charges, and between these two plates you have a insulator, which is not allowing the current to flow. What do you call this capacitance? You heard the name before. This capacitance is called as the junction capacitance. You've heard this name before, junction capacitance. When do you get junction capacitance? Whenever a junction is reverse biased. Okay. Now in this capacitor, if I apply a voltage, what will happen? If I apply suppose a DC voltage, what will happen? The current will start flowing. What is the value of that current? It is C dV by dt. Okay. Similarly, while forward biasing this SCR, if I close the switch instantly, I instantly allow this whole voltage. Suppose this voltage is 200 volt. I close this switch and instantly 200 voltage appears. 200 volt appears across the SCR. What is the value of dV by dt here? Voltage is changing from 0 to 200. So dV is 200. The time taken for this change is 0. So dV by dt becomes infinite. And if dV by dt is infinite, how much current will flow through the SCR? Infinite current will flow. Okay. So if I apply this voltage instantly, a very large value of current will flow through the SCR, and this current will turn on the SCR. It will break the junction J2. This method of triggering the SCR is called as dV by dt triggering. Will this method be used in practice? What do you think?
No, sir.
No, because it will damage the SCR. Okay. The fourth method by which this SCR can be turned on is called as temperature triggering. Again, I have forward biased SCR. J1 and J3 are forward biased. J2 is reverse biased. Because J2 is reverse biased, there is depletion layer formed across J2. Okay. Now, ideally, no current should flow through the SCR because junction J2 is reverse biased. But in practice, a very small amount of current will flow. What is that current called?
Reverse current.
No, it is not reverse. It is still flowing from anode to cathode. It is still forward, but it is the leakage.
Leakage current.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, if the voltage applied here is V, what is the voltage across J1? J1 is forward biased, so voltage across J1 is 0. J3 is forward biased, so voltage across J3 is also 0. What is the voltage across J2? It is V. This voltage will appear across junction J2. And leakage current is flowing through junction J2. Because there is voltage, there is current flowing, so there will be some power loss at junction J2. How much is that power loss? It is the voltage multiplied by the leakage current. The leakage current is very small, but the voltage is very high. Because of it, there will be some power loss across junction J2. And whenever there is power loss, what happens? What happens? Heat is generated. Correct? And if heat is generated, temperature will increase. And if the temperature increases, what will happen? It is a semiconductor device. So if you increase the temperature, the leakage current will increase. If the leakage current increases, the power loss will increase, more heat will be generated, more leakage current generated. Okay? So it is a loop. It will keep going on like this. Till when? Till this junction J2 breaks down and your SCR turns on. This method of triggering the SCR is called as temperature triggering. Will you turn on the SCR using this method? Yes or no? No. Why? Because your SCR will burn. Okay? The temperature will go on increasing and your SCR will burn. Okay? So temperature triggering is also not used. Plus you don't have any control. You have to wait for the temperature to increase so that the SCR turns on. Okay? So that method is also not used in practice. The last method is called as light triggering. Okay. For light triggering, you have special SCRs known as light activated SCRs. What you do here, you forward bias the SCR, and whenever you want to turn on the SCR, you put a high intensity light in this gap. As you can see, there is no gate terminal here. There is a notch. And in this notch, you'll put a high intensity light. Because of this high intensity light, the temperature will increase here and electron hole pairs will be released. And those electrons will break down the junction J2 and your SCR will turn on. This method is known as light triggering. And the SCRs are called as light activated SCRs. This method is used in practice. Okay? So the two methods used in practice are gate triggering and light triggering. Where do you think light triggering will be used? Any guesses? And what is the advantage of light triggering over gate triggering? No guesses? Actually, there are two circuits here. One is this circuit where you have the main supply and the load. This is called as the power circuit. Power circuit. And this is the second circuit where you have the gate, supply between gate and cathode. This circuit is called as the control circuit. So power circuit, control circuit. Power circuit, control circuit. The advantage of light triggering is that there is no connection between the power circuit and the control circuit. Whereas here, if there is a problem in the power circuit, your control circuit also will get damaged. Okay? So light triggering has the advantage that it provides electrical isolation or isolation between the power circuit and the control circuit. And that is why this method of triggering is used in high voltage applications. Okay. Can I move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay. These are the switching characteristics of SCRs. Whenever we turn on the SCR, we are giving the gate signal here. Okay, before this the SCR is off. Before this line the SCR is off, and because the SCR is off, the full supply voltage is appearing across the SCR, whereas the current flowing through the SCR is negligible. Only the leakage current is flowing. Okay. The power loss across the SCR, that will be equal to the voltage multiplied by the current, that is also negligible. Now for turning on the SCR, we are giving a gate signal here. When you give a gate signal, the SCR does not turn on instantly. Okay? The SCR does not turn on instantly. Why it does not turn on instantly? Because it is a semiconductor device. And when the SCR was off, only the leakage current was flowing. When you turn on the SCR, this conduction area has to spread across the whole SCR, and that takes some time. So when you turn on the SCR, when you give the gate signal for turning on the SCR, what happens? The anode current gradually increases, and simultaneously the voltage goes on decreasing. Okay. At this point, we say that the SCR has turned on, after which the voltage across the SCR will be very small. Ideally, it should be zero. Practically, even when on, the SCR has some resistance, so there will be some voltage drop across the SCR. So when the SCR is off, full voltage, ideally zero current, practically leakage current. When the SCR is on, full load current, ideally zero voltage, practically some voltage, 1 to 2 volts. Okay. And when you turn off the SCR, again, the current does not instantly become zero. It gradually reduces to zero. Okay. This is the turn on process of the SCR. This is the turn off process of the SCR. The thing is, the SCR losses are very small when the SCR is off, because the current is very small. And SCR losses are again very small when the SCR is on, because the voltage is very small. But when the SCR is turning on, there is some time duration, the voltage and current both are high. And so there will be a high power loss across the SCR. The same thing will happen when the SCR is turning off. These losses, when the SCR is turning on and when the SCR is turning off, these losses are called as switching losses. And these losses, when the SCR is on, these losses are known as conduction losses. Okay. Is this clear? Yes. Those losses which take place when the SCR is turning on or turning off, those losses are known as switching losses. Whereas the losses that take place when the SCR is on and conducting, those are known as conduction losses. Okay. Silicon control rectifier has very small conduction losses, but the switching losses are high. Okay. These losses depend on the device used. Okay. Can I move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have some concepts known as latching current and holding current. You have studied them. I'll skip these. Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Practically, if your current becomes less than the holding current, your SCR will turn off. Practically, the holding current is taken as zero. And latching current, if your SCR current becomes equal to the latching current, then even if the gate signal is removed, the SCR remains in the on state. The thyristor protection you don't need for gate. Very frankly, I've not seen any questions on thyristor protection as far as gate is concerned. Series parallel operation of SCRs also have not seen any questions, not for firing circuits or commutation techniques. Okay, before I go into AC to DC converters, I'll just briefly discuss the other devices. The device that we have seen now is called the SCR, silicon controlled rectifier. 3-terminal device, anode, cathode, and gate. Control rectifier because it will conduct only when you turn on the SCR, otherwise it will not conduct. And how do you turn on the SCR? By giving a gate signal. The question is, how do you turn off the SCR? Because if you remove the gate signal, the SCR still remains in the on state. गेट सिग्नल हटा भी देंगे तो भी SCR ऑन ही रहेगा. तो SCR को ऑफ कैसे करें? हाउ टू टर्न ऑफ द SCR? Yes, what is the answer? No one? How do you turn off the SCR? You turn off the SCR by making this current, anode current IA, by making the anode current less than the holding current. And we've just seen what is holding current. If the SCR current becomes less than the holding current, the SCR turns off. And for all practical purposes, the holding current is taken as 0. So if you want to turn off the SCR, you have to make the SCR current 0. Then the SCR will turn off. Am I clear?
Yes, sir, clear.
Yes. Okay. Now the thing is, if you have an AC supply, around this point, the current will automatically become 0. You don't have to do anything to make the current 0. If it is a resistive circuit, at this instant itself, the current will become 0. If it is an inductive circuit, then after some time, the current will become 0. But if the supply is AC, the SCR current automatically becomes 0. You don't have to do anything special to reduce the SCR current to 0. That is the reason whenever or whichever circuits use AC supply, the device used is the SCR. Which circuits use the AC supply? Rectifiers, that is AC to DC converters, cycloconverters, that is AC to AC converter, and AC voltage controller, again AC to AC converter. These 3 types of circuits always use SCRs because SCRs are the best devices. Out of all the devices available till now, the SCR is the best device. Okay. So for all these 3 types of circuits use SCRs. However, if the circuit is DC, if the supply is DC, for example, in this circuit, okay, suppose we have a 100-volt supply and 10 ohm resistance, and we close this switch, then the current flowing here is 10 ampere. When will this current become 0 automatically? The answer is never. I know. The current will not become 0 because the supply is DC. So if you are using an SCR here, you have to use a separate circuit to reduce the SCR current to 0. This separate circuit is called as a commutation circuit. Okay. So if you are using an SCR with a DC supply, along with the SCR, you have to provide a commutation circuit. So this commutation circuit will use inductors and capacitors. Your circuit will become bulky and there will be commutation losses. The commutation losses will increase because there will be losses in the commutation circuit also. Okay. That is why SCRs are not preferred for circuits which use DC supply. Which are the circuits which use DC supply? One is chopper, the other is inverter. For these circuits, you do not want to use an SCR. So which device will you use? There are two types of devices which are very popular. One is the IGBT, insulated gate bipolar transistor, and the other is the MOSFET, metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. Okay. MOSFET SCR switching frequency is in hundreds of hertz. Means 500 hertz, 600 hertz you can go. IGBT in 1 second you can go in thousands of hertz, and IGBT can be turned on and off thousands of times in a single second. Whereas a MOSFET, the switching frequency is in megahertz, 10 to the power 6 times in a single second. MOSFET, the losses during turn on and turn off are very low, but conduction losses are high. IGBT, conduction loss is low as compared to MOSFET. Switching loss is higher as compared to MOSFET. As compared to SCR, it is less. Chopper, you require high frequency operation. Okay? That is why for chopper circuits, the preferable device is the MOSFET. Whereas inverters operate at lower frequencies, kilohertz range. So for inverters, the preferred device is IGBT. Is this clear? Yes. Has everyone left the class? See, there are students. Is this clear, students?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Chetan sir showed a slide, and on that slide some power electronic devices were listed. So I'll tell you those power electronic devices can be divided into two categories. One is half controlled. And this half controlled comes SCR. Because you can only turn on the SCR, you cannot turn off the SCR using the gate signal. And the other category of devices is fully controlled. In this fully controlled comes your IGBT, your MOSFET, your bipolar junction transistor, your GTO. Fully controlled because IGBT, MOSFET, GT, you have a base here. When you give a signal to the base signal on, the device is on. Base signal off, the device is off. Okay? That is why they are called as fully controlled devices. So if I give this type of gate signal, base signal to these devices, during this period the device will be on, during this period the device will be off. Again, base signal goes high, it turns on, base signal goes low, it turns off. Okay. So for circuits where DC supply is there, these devices are preferable because you don't need a commutation circuit. You can control their on and off by using the base signal. BJT is not preferred for power electronics because BJT lies in between these two. Okay? So it is nowhere. Lower frequency IGBT, higher frequency MOSFET. Earlier, when IGBT MOSFETs were not there, GTOs were used, gate turn-off thyristor. Okay, so this gate turn-off thyristor, if you give a forward gate current, the device turned on, and if you gave a reverse gate current, the device turned off. Okay, so you could turn on as well as turn off by using the gate signal. The problem is, for turning off, the gate signal required is, the gate current required is very, very high, around 20% of the load current. Okay. So suppose your full load current is suppose 100 ampere. Then for turning off this GTO, you required a current of 20 ampere to be provided. Okay. So when IGBT and MOSFET were not there, GTO was still used. But as soon as these devices came, GTO is now gone. Okay. GTO is no longer preferred. There is a new device that is coming that is called as IGCT. Okay. When that IGCT is fully developed, you will not hear about GTO anymore. Okay. Are these concepts clear? Can I move forward? Am I going too fast?
No, sir.
So these are the power electronic devices. Now, these devices are used in some circuits. So there are 4 main types of circuits here. The first one is the AC to DC converter or rectifier. This is a single phase half wave rectifier. There's a classification here. You must have studied the classification in power electronics. One classification is depending on the supply, whether it is a single phase rectifier or a 3-phase rectifier. Okay. So if the supply is single phase, it becomes a single phase rectifier. If the supply is 3-phase, it becomes a 3-phase rectifier. The second classification is based on how much part of the AC wave is rectified. If only this part is rectified, it is called a half wave rectifier. Whereas if all parts are rectified, it is called a full wave rectifier. Okay. The third classification is based on the devices used. If you are using only SCRs, it is called a fully controlled rectifier. If you are using only diodes, it is called an uncontrolled rectifier. Whereas if you are using half SCRs and half diodes, then it is called a half controlled rectifier. Okay, is this clear? So the circuit that you see, it has a single phase supply. It is rectifying only half wave. So it is a single phase half wave fully controlled rectifier because the device used is the SCR, fully controlled converter, or you can call it full converter also. Okay. So what is the principle of operation? This is the supply voltage. And you are giving firing pulses at this firing angle alpha. And this is the gate current. You are giving gate current at an angle alpha. So from 0 to alpha, the SCR is forward biased, but it will not conduct because there is no current in the gate circuit. And because the SCR is not conducting, there is an open circuit here. And because there is an open circuit, the output current is 0, the output voltage is also 0. At this instant, alpha, you are providing a gate current, so you are turning on the SCR. As soon as the SCR turns on, there is a short circuit here. And because there is a short circuit here, your load is connected across the supply. So as soon as the SCR turns on, your output voltage becomes equal to the supply voltage. The load is resistive, so output current is in phase with the output voltage. And the output voltage will remain equal to the supply voltage as long as the SCR is conducting. Till when will the SCR conduct? Till its current becomes 0. As soon as the current becomes 0, the SCR turns off. the SCR turns off. So again, there is an open circuit. So the output voltage becomes 0. The output current becomes 0. Till what point? Till the SCR is triggered again. After which, once again, the output voltage becomes equal to the supply voltage and so on. Is this clear? Yes. You all studied this already. Is this working clear?
Yes, sir.
So as far as the output voltage is concerned, till the firing angle alpha, the output voltage is 0. And after the firing angle, the output voltage is equal to the supply voltage. Okay. This is your 2 pi. This here is pi. This is 2 pi. Will again be turned on at 2 pi plus alpha. Resistive load. So output current is in phase with the output voltage. Output voltage 0. Output current 0. Output voltage increases instantly. Output current increases instantly. Output voltage increasing, current increasing. Voltage maximum, current maximum. Voltage decreasing, current decreasing. Voltage 0, current 0. Okay? In phase. Okay. Now my question is, this output voltage that you see, is it DC or AC? Yes. Is it DC or AC?
AC.
No, it is not AC.
Sir, DC.
You call it pulsating DC. Okay? Pulsating DC means it has DC as well as AC. Okay? It has a DC component as well as AC component. Of course, you have to use a filter. Okay? That filter will filter the AC and pass the DC. Okay? Clear? How much is the DC here? How much is the DC component? So that DC value is called as the average value. How much is the average value? You consider any one cycle. Okay? So one cycle is from 0 to 2 pi. So 1 upon length of one cycle, that is 2 pi. Integral from, you will integrate only from alpha to pi, because here it is 0, integral of 0 is 0. Here also it is 0, integral of 0 is 0. So integral from alpha to pi. How much is the voltage during this interval? It is same as the supply voltage. The supply voltage we can say is Vm sine omega t, and will integrate with respect to, on the x-axis you have omega t. Is this clear? Yes. One upon length of one cycle, integral from alpha to pi. From alpha to pi, the output voltage is the supply voltage, Vm sine omega t, integrated with respect to omega t. Now, Vm is the maximum value of the supply voltage. It is constant, so it comes out of the integral sign, Vm by 2 pi. What is the integral of sine omega t? It is minus cos omega t. Limits of integration are from alpha to pi. If you substitute the limits of integration, okay, it will become cos alpha minus cos pi. Cos pi is minus 1, so it becomes 1 plus cos alpha. Vm by 2 pi, 1 plus cos alpha. Okay. This is the value of the DC component in the output voltage. As you can see, it depends on alpha. If you change alpha, the DC component will change. Okay? That is why It is a controlled rectifier. You can control the magnitude of the output voltage simply by changing the firing angle. If you put the firing angle at pi, if you put alpha is equal to pi, cos pi is -1, your average output voltage becomes 0. If you put the firing angle at 0, cos 0 is 1, 1 plus 1, 2, 2 and 2 get cancelled. So the maximum output voltage that you can get is Vm by pi. Okay, is this clear? Yes. Yes or no? I hope your Chetan sir is recording this. Okay, you can provide you the recording. You can go through this once again later. This is the DC voltage in the output. How much is the DC current? Because it is a resistive load, it is simply V0 by R. I0 is equal to V0 by R. Okay. You can also find out the RMS value of the output voltage. Okay. DC value considered only the DC component. RMS value will consider DC as well as the AC components. How much is the RMS value? 1 upon length of one cycle, integral from alpha to pi, function square. Function square is Vm squared sine squared omega t, integrated with respect to omega t. Everything is under root. This is how you find out the RMS value. Okay. For integration, you have to use the formula sine squared theta is equal to 1 minus cos 2 theta by 2. Okay. So that can be determined. The RMS value, I think, will come out to be Vm by 2 here. Okay. So this was a single phase half wave rectifier. This is also the same rectifier, but the load now here is, how is the load? Yes. What happened? The load now here is inductive. There is resistance as well as inductance. And because the load is inductive, your current, your output current is lagging behind the voltage. So your peak of the voltage is coming first and peak of the current is coming later. And inductance, the current cannot change instantly. It has to change gradually. Okay. So because the current is changing gradually, the peak of the voltage comes first, peak of the current comes later. Voltage becomes 0 earlier, current becomes 0 later. And as long as current is flowing through the SCR remains in the on state. So your output voltage will remain equal to the supply voltage. Okay, that is the difference between the resistive load and the inductive load. Okay, are you following me? Yes or no? But I'm going too fast. Or should we stop this and go to gate questions? Or you want a 5-minute break? Yes. I'm just speaking alone. Chetan sir, are you here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There is no response from the students. I'm asking
Student,
them
please
whether
respond, sir.
I should shift to gate questions or should I continue with the slides? And there is no answer.
Gate question, sir. You have to shift to gate questions.
So I'll shift to gate questions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as I told you earlier, there are two types of questions in GATE, 1 mark and 2 mark. 1 mark is simpler, 2 marks are slightly complicated. Okay. So let us see some 1 mark questions. I have 6 question papers with me. We'll start with 2016. Okay. So in 2016, the first question on power electronics was question number 22. Okay. But if I teach you this first, you'll get afraid, I think. So I'll start with 2017. Then we'll come back to 2016. Because 2017 you had very, very simple questions on power electronics. So this is the first question. Question number 11. A phase-controlled single-phase full bridge converter is supplying a highly inductive DC load. The converter is fed from 230 volt 50 Hertz AC source. The fundamental frequency in Hertz of the voltage ripple on the DC side is. Okay. The fundamental frequency in Hertz of the voltage ripple on the DC side is. I think I'll show you one more circuit here. This is the question. This is the circuit in question. Phase controlled single phase full bridge converter. Single phase full bridge converter. Supplying a highly inductive DC load. This is a highly inductive DC load. Okay. When you're using a highly inductive DC load, the conduction is continuous. A very highly inductive load, your current will become constant. Okay, so supplying a highly inductive DC load, the converter is fed from a 50 Hertz AC source. This is your 50 Hertz AC source. You have to determine the fundamental frequency of the voltage ripple on the DC side. Now, as you can see, this is the output voltage. What do you think is the frequency of this voltage ripple? Yes? Anyone? Okay. Suppose you are using a diode rectifier or your firing angle is 0. If your firing angle is 0, this is your supply voltage, this is your output voltage. This frequency is 50 Hertz. What is the frequency of this voltage ripple? That is the question. Anyone who can answer? Yes. Hmm.
Hertz.
No, it is not 50 Hertz. The frequency is double. Here one cycle is completed.
Double frequency increase.
Yes. So if this is 50 Hertz, this frequency.
Hello, sir.
Yes, I could hear you. The frequency has doubled.
Sir, double
Yes.
frequency input.
So the correct answer here is 100 hertz. Okay. Check.
100.
Next question is this one. In the circuit shown, the diodes are ideal. Ideal diode means instantly they will turn on, instantly they will turn off. The inductance is small. This inductance is small, and this current is non-zero. Okay, some current. This is a ideal current source. Which one of the following statements is true? There are 4 statements given here. What I'll do is I'll draw this circuit here. You have an AC supply. You have an inductance. It is small, but it is still there. And then you have 2 diodes. One diode D1 connected like this. The other diode D2 connected like this. And you have a current source here. Current source means this current is always flowing because it is non-zero. Now, how will be the working of this circuit? And this is your AC supply. Okay, this is your AC supply voltage, Vs. This angle is 180 degrees or pi. This angle is 360 degrees or 2 pi. Okay. I'll call this current as I1. Current through diode D1 is I1 and current through diode D2 is I2. Now in the positive half cycle, this diode D1 is forward biased. Diode D1 is forward biased, so current will flow like this. Okay. How much will be this current? This current will be I0 because you have a current source here, constant. But when you turn on D1, can the current increase instantly? Can it increase instantly? The answer is no, because you have an inductance here. And inductance does not allow the current to change instantly. So during the positive half cycle, when the D1 turns on, the current through D1, it will change gradually from 0 to I0. And it will remain equal to I0 till pi. Okay. Now at this instant, what happens? Your supply has become negative. This terminal has become negative. This terminal has become positive. So ideally, this diode should be reverse biased now and it should turn off. Because there is an inductor here, that inductor will not allow this diode to turn off till the current becomes 0. So even after this, your diode will continue to conduct till the current becomes 0. Okay. And here again, positive half cycle, again increases, decreases. This current is constant, I1 plus I2. I1 plus I2 is equal to I0. If we see the waveform of I2 here, when I1 starts decreasing, I2 starts increasing. Once this diode has turned off, this output current has to flow through diode D2. So diode D2 current is equal to I0. And when this diode turns on, this current starts increasing, this current starts decreasing. This is the waveform of the currents I1 and I2. So as you can see, diode D1 is conducting for a duration that is greater than 180 degrees. And diode D2 is also conducting for a duration that is greater than 180 degrees. That is why the right answer here is D. D1 conducts for more than 180 degrees and D2 also conducts for, no, it is not D, it is A. D1 conducts for greater than 180 degrees and D2 conducts for greater than 180 degrees. Okay, am I clear? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the next question is this one. A three-phase voltage source inverter with ideal devices operating in 180 degrees conduction mode is feeding a balanced star-connected resistive load. You have studied this circuit, three-phase VSI, 180 degrees mode, star-connected resistive load. The DC voltage input is VDC. The peak of the fundamental component of the phase voltage is, the answer is 2 VDC upon pi. Okay. At this point, I'd like to tell you which book to refer. Which book have you used for your university examination? Which book did you use? Or you studied only from notes and VBD? This is the book that you have to use for GATE. Remember this book. What is the name of this book? Power Electronics, Circuits, Devices and Applications. Name of the author is M.H. Rashid. Okay. Note down the name of this book. Power Electronics, Circuits, Devices and Applications by M.H. Rashid. M.H. Rashid, there are two books. One is Power Electronics Handbook. Don't use that. Okay? You'll get lost. Use this book. Power Electronics, Circuits, Devices and Applications. Okay. So in this book, all these type of questions that are based on formulae, you can answer from this book. So this question is on inverters, three-phase inverters, page number 233. Three-phase inverters. This circuit you must have studied for your university. This is your 180 degrees operation mode. So in this case, analysis is given. This is the output voltage waveform. Phase voltage. Okay. So what was the question? Peak of the fundamental component of the phase voltage. Peak of the fundamental component of the phase voltage. Line voltage it is given here. Line voltage, this is the equation. The fundamental component, it will be, for fundamental component, you have to put n is equal to 1. So it will be 4 Vs by pi cos pi by 6. Okay. So peak is 4 Vs by pi cos pi by 6. Cos 30, root 3 by 2. Okay. 4 Vs by pi cos pi by 6, fundamental component, peak component of line voltage. 4 Vs by pi cos 30. Or 4 Vs by pi cos 30 is root 3 by 2. Okay. This is your line voltage. How much is the phase voltage? It will be 4 Vs by pi into root 3 by 2. That is your line voltage. Phase voltage, all you have to do is divide by root 3. This root 3 get cancelled. This 2, it becomes 2 Vs by pi. Or in terms of the notation used in the question, it becomes 2 VDC upon pi. Okay. So the answer here is B, that is 2 VDC upon pi. Did I go too fast here? Should I repeat?
No, sir, clear.
ठीक है, ठीक है. Note down the name of this book. All such questions, the answers are there in this book. Okay. Okay. The next question is question number 16. You have a controlled rectifier here. Fully controlled rectifier, sorry, half controlled rectifier, because you have 2 SCRs and 2 diodes. 230 volt, 50 hertz, single phase voltage source is there. A 10:1 ideal transformer is there. You have to assume that all devices are ideal. The firing angle of the thyristors, this is being fired at 90 degrees. This is being fired at 270 degrees. There is also a freewheeling diode here and a resistive load. The question is, what is the RMS value of the current through diode D3? Can anybody answer? RMS value of the current through diode D3. It is a 1 mark question. If you can answer, yes. If you can't answer, say. So then I will explain. Yes, anyone? No? So I'll assume that you cannot answer it. The answer here is the answer is 0. Okay, what is the answer? 0. You don't need to do any calculation here to know that the answer is 0. Because this question is based on the principle that if you have a resistive load, no current will flow through the feedback diode. Freewheeling diode, sorry, not feedback, freewheeling. Whether it be a chopper, sorry, whether it be a rectifier, whether it be a chopper, whether it be an inverter. If the load is resistive, no current will flow through the freewheeling diode. Or in case of inverter, no current will flow through the feedback diode. Okay. So that is why this is only a 1 mark question, because it is a simple question. As soon they've given a lot of information here, बहुत सारी चीजें दिया है, वो सब कोई काम की नहीं है. Important is the load is resistive. If the load is resistive, no current flows through this diode. That is why the RMS value of the current through diode D3 in amperes is 0. Okay, am I clear? Yes. Should I elaborate? Say something, yes or no. Should I elaborate or answer clear?
Clear, sir.
Okay, let let us go to some other question papers. Let us go to 2016. Okay. 2016, this is the first question. Buck converter. You studied buck converter, correct? What you call it as a step-up chopper. Sorry, buck converter, step-down chopper. So you studied step-down chopper. I'll even tell you which circuit, because I've taught in Nagpur University. I can tell you this is the circuit that you used. You had a supply, you had a switch here, you had a diode here, you had an inductor here, and you had the load here. This was your output voltage. This was your output current, correct? This was the circuit that you have studied. The thing is, you will not see those circuits in GATE because those circuits are from P.S. Bhimra. They are from the book by P.S. Bhimra. Whereas in GATE, the circuits that you will see will be from Rashid. Okay, I'll show you here. M.H. Rashid. DC choppers. Buck converter, page number 190. Yes, buck regulators. Okay, this is the circuit. You have a supply, Vs. You have a switch. This is the switch. Then you have a diode. This is the diode. Then you have the inductor. This is the inductor. Then you have a capacitor. This is the capacitor. And then you have the load. This is the load. Okay? Very important point. The circuits that you see in GATE will be not from P.S. Bhimra or from your college notes or from VBD. They will be from the book by M.H. Rashid. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, so you have a buck converter here, also known as a step-down chopper, because the output voltage is always less than the supply voltage. And it is said that this buck converter is working in steady state. The output voltage and the inductor current can be assumed to be ripple-free. What is the meaning of ripple-free? When you studied for your university examination, the output of the buck converter was like this. Am I correct? This was your on time. This was your off time. And this was your total time. Time for one cycle. And this was your output voltage when you studied for your university examination, power electronics paper. Correct? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
But here it is saying that the output voltage is ripple free. That means this is the output voltage. Okay, there are no ripples, it is constant. And why it is constant? Because you have a filter here. This capacitance is acting as a filter. And this capacitance will make the output voltage ripple free. It will pass the DC, it will block all the AC. Okay, so the output voltage as well as the inductor current it is saying is ripple free or constant. Now this waveform is not of the output voltage. This waveform is of the inductor voltage during a complete switching interval, on time as well as off time. Assuming all devices are ideal, the duty cycle of the buck converter is, okay, that is the question. I'll answer it here. You have a supply, Vs. Here they are using the notation VG. So Vs or VG. Is the value of the supply voltage given? The answer is no. Now when the chopper is on, when this chopper is on, there is a short circuit here. And this diode is reverse biased. So there is a short circuit here, there is an open circuit here. So after the supply, directly you have an inductor. After the supply, you have an inductor. And after that, you have the load. Here you have the output voltage V0, which is constant. Okay, this is the inductor. This is the inductor voltage. So how much is the inductor voltage? The inductor voltage, as you can see, if you apply KVL here, is equal to the supply voltage minus the output voltage. Okay, this is when the chopper is on. And this value is given. When the chopper is on, the inductor voltage is 30 volt. So this value is 30 volt. Now what happens when the chopper is off? When the chopper is off, there is an open circuit here. Okay. Whereas this inductor current, which is constant, will now flow through the freewheeling diode. So there is a short circuit here. So how is the equivalent circuit when the chopper is off? You have an inductor. This is the assumed positive polarity of the inductor. Here you have the output voltage, V0, and there is a short circuit here. The output voltage is constant. So once again, if you apply KVL, you get VL is equal to minus V0, positive to negative, negative to positive. So VL is equal to minus V0. And this VL, when the chopper is off, is given as minus 20 volt. Minus 20 volt. That means your output voltage V0 is equal to 20 volt. And if you substitute here, your supply voltage becomes equal to 30 plus V0. So that is 50 volt. Okay, was this clear? Now, if you remember,
Yes, sir.
for the buck converter, the duty cycle is simply V0 upon Vs. Correct? You've seen this formula. No? V0 is equal to alpha Vs. So duty cycle alpha is equal to V0 upon Vs. So V0 is 20, Vs is 50. So your duty cycle becomes 0.4. Okay, that is the answer to this question. This is not a multiple choice question. You have to write the answer. So the value of duty cycle here is 0.4. Okay. So that was question number 22. The next question here was question number 23, where they have shown an IGBT. Now, in case of IGBT, there is always a diode in parallel. It is inbuilt. You don't have to connect it externally. It is inbuilt. You have an anti-parallel diode. So this is a power module where you have a switch and a diode. And the steady DC current of 100 ampere is flowing. Now, out of this switch and diode, which device will conduct, whether the switch or the diode? It depends on the direction of the current. If the current had been flowing like this, it would have flowed through the switch. But because the current is flowing like this, it will flow through the diode. So in this power module, for this steady DC current of 100 ampere, the switch is not conducting, the diode is conducting. Okay? That is an important point here. Now they've shown the VI characteristics of both the IGBT and diode. But because the IGBT is not conducting, this VI characteristic is of no interest to us because the IGBT is not conducting. What we are interested in is the diode because the diode is conducting. Okay. Now they want us to find out the conduction power loss in the power module. the conduction power loss in the power module. That will be same as the conduction loss in the diode because the IGBT is not conducting. And this is the VI characteristic of the diode. There is a voltage drop. No. As you go on increasing the diode voltage till 0.7 volt, there is no drop. After 0.7 volt, this is the characteristic. The slope of this characteristic is given. dV by di is equal to 0.01 ohms. So when this diode is conducting, this diode can be replaced by an equivalent circuit. When the diode is conducting, that diode can be replaced by an equivalent circuit. That equivalent circuit will have a voltage source and it will have a resistance. And the current flowing through this diode is 100 ampere. How much is this voltage? Can anyone tell me? How much is this voltage? From this characteristic. All that we have is this characteristic. How much is that voltage?
0.7 volt.
Yes, that voltage is 0.7 volt. And how much is this resistance? The resistance of the diode when it is on, it is conducting.
0.01.
Yes, dV by di, dynamic resistance, 0.01 ohm. Okay. So the conduction loss through the diode is 0.7 into 100 plus 100 squared into 0.01.
Sir, 170 watt.
I got disconnected. Okay, so I was asking whether you want to solve 1-2 more questions or should we stop here? What do you say, students?
Yes, sir. Continue.
Because I'm presenting my screen once again. So till now we have seen, you can see the screen, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So till now we have seen single mark questions. Let us now see some 2-mark questions. Okay. So this is a 2-mark question. A single phase thyristor bridge rectifier is fed from a 230 volt 50 Hz single phase AC mains. single phase thyristor bridge rectifier. It is a single phase rectifier. It is a fully controlled rectifier. Nothing mentioned whether it is half wave or full wave. If it is delivering a constant DC current of 10 ampere, okay, the output current is constant at 10 ampere. Half wave rectifier cannot give you a constant output current. Half wave rectifier, the current will become 0. So because it is delivering a constant DC current of 10 ampere, it is a full wave rectifier. At a firing angle of 30 degrees, then value of the power factor at AC mains is. Value of the power factor at AC mains is. This is the circuit. You have an AC supply, Vs, this is your single phase, full wave, fully controlled rectifier. And this is your load. And you're getting a constant output current. That means your load has to be highly inductive. Okay. So your output current is constant. The voltage here is your output voltage. These are the devices T1, T2, T3, T4. This is your supply voltage. Yes, this angle is pi, this angle is 2 pi, 3 pi, and so on. Output voltage, because you are triggering at an angle of 30 degrees. You are triggering at an angle of 30 degrees and your output current is constant. That means your conduction is continuous. So here T1, T2 will be triggered. Output voltage will be equal to supply voltage. They will continue to conduct till T3, T4 turn on, after which output voltage will become minus Vs. This is your output voltage. This is your output current. It is constant at I0. And then you have your supply current. And the supply current depends on which devices are conducting. This is your supply current. If T1 and T2 are conducting, then your supply current is same as the output current. T1, T2 on. Supply current is same as the output current. Whereas if T3 and T4 are on, if T3 and T4 are on, then the direction has reversed. So your supply current becomes equal to the negative of the output current. So here T1, T2 are on, your supply current is same as the output current till this point. Whereas here T3, T4 turn on, so supply current becomes equal to negative of output current. Again T1, T2 on, T3, T4 on. This is the nature of your supply current. Remember that your output is DC. Output is DC, whereas supply is AC. That is why the output current, as you can see here, is DC, but the supply current is AC. This angle is your firing angle alpha. Now this supply current, it is not pure AC. That means it has a fundamental component as well as it has a number of harmonics. Only odd harmonics, no even harmonics. this will be the nature of the fundamental component of the supply current, IS1. Now the question that is asked is, what is the power factor of the supply? What is the power factor of the supply? Okay. There is no concept of power factor here on the output side because output is DC. But the input is AC. There is a concept of power factor here. What is the formula for power factor? You have an AC voltage, you have an AC current. What is the formula for power factor? Can anyone tell me? Supply power factor is equal to how much? Is it cos phi? Is it cos phi? Yes or no?
No, sir.
No. Power factor is cos phi only when all voltages and currents are sinusoidal. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Only when all voltages and currents are sinusoidal. Here the voltage, supply voltage is sinusoidal, but the supply current is not sinusoidal. That is why the power factor is not cos phi. So in case of power electronics, where you encounter non-sinusoidal voltages and currents, the formula for power factor changes. For rectifiers, the supply power factor is given by IS1 upon IS into cos phi. Okay. If voltages and currents are sinusoidal, IS1 and IS are same. So this becomes 1. That is why we have learned that power factor is cos phi. But if they are not sinusoidal, then this is different. Okay. So power factor actually in power electronics has two terms. This term is called the distortion factor. And this term is called the displacement factor. Okay, there are two factors here, distortion factor and displacement factor. Okay, now this might seem like a hard question, but it is actually a very simple question if you know the formula. Okay, and the formula is that for full wave rectifier with constant output current, for a full wave rectifier with constant output current, the fundamental component of the supply current is given by 2 root 2 upon pi into I0, where I0 is the output current. Okay, this is the value of IS1. Whereas the RMS value of the supply current, this is RMS value of fundamental component of supply current. RMS value of the supply current is simply equal to I0. And for a full wave rectifier, this phi is equal to alpha, not full wave, fully controlled. For a full wave half controlled rectifier, this phi will be equal to alpha by 2. Okay, fully controlled rectifier, phi is equal to alpha. Half controlled rectifier or semi-converter, phi is equal to alpha by 2. If you substitute these here, the power factor will be IS1 upon IS. If you divide IS1 by IS, this I0 get cancelled. So you are left with 2 root 2 upon pi multiplied by cos alpha. That alpha is 30 degrees. If you substitute these values, the answer that you get is 0.7796. Okay, I calculated. The answer you get is 0.7796. These are the options available. So the option that you will choose is 0.78. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, sir, clear.
Yes, these are the formula that you have to remember. You've seen this formula before?
No, sir.
You will find them in this book. Okay, MH Rashid, this formula will be given. Okay, one last question we'll see. Then we'll stop. Okay. Question number 44. The switches T1 and T2 in figure A are switched in a complementary fashion. Complementary means if one is on, the other is off. If this is off, this is on. With sinusoidal pulse width modulation technique. This is sinusoidal pulse width modulation technique that you see here. You have a modulating wave or reference wave, and you have a carrier wave. Okay? Whenever the modulating wave is greater than the carrier wave, you will turn on T1. When the modulating wave is less than the carrier wave, T1 will be off. These two are complementary. So when T1 is on, T2 is off. When you turn on T1, T2 is off. And when you turn off T1, T2 turns on. Okay? Now the carrier wave amplitude you will see is always 1. But the modulating wave amplitude can change. Okay? Your output voltage, as long as this modulating wave amplitude is less than 1 or equal to 1, you have a linear relationship. Okay? If it becomes greater than 1, it is non-linear. Fortunately, in this question, the amplitude is less than 1. Okay? What is the frequency of the modulating wave? 0.8 sine 200 pi t. This is in which form? Sine omega t or sine 2 pi ft. This is given as sine 200 pi t. 200 pi t. That means the frequency of the modulating wave is 100 Hertz. Okay. This modulating wave decides the output frequency of the inverter. If the modulating wave frequency is 100 Hertz, the output voltage will also be 100 Hertz. Okay, so the modulating voltage Vm is given, the triangular carrier voltage Vc is given. Carrier frequency is 5 kilohertz. This carrier frequency is 5 kilohertz. The peak value of the 100 Hertz component of the load current in ampere is. Okay, that is the question. And this is a single phase. Which circuit is this? Yes. Which circuit is this? This is a single phase half bridge inverter. Half bridge. Full bridge, you have 2 thyristors here, you have 2 thyristors here. Okay, that becomes a full bridge inverter. DC supply, 2 thyristors, and load here. Right, I'll show you here. Single phase bridge inverters. This is the circuit. Single phase half bridge inverter. 2 DC sources. Okay. Here he is using VDC by 2. Here it is given Vs by 2. So 2 DC sources. IGBT in parallel with diode. IGBT in parallel with diode. Okay. T1, T2, 2 switches. And then you have this load connected here. The load connected here. Resistive load. After that, I think you have, no, this is a full bridge inverter. So only resistive load here shown. Okay. The thing is, for a single phase half bridge inverter, the RMS value of the fundamental component. We are asked only the fundamental component of the load current. So we need the fundamental component of the output voltage. That is given here. RMS value of fundamental component is 0.45 times the supply voltage. So RMS value of the fundamental component V1 is 0.45 into Vs. Okay. The value of Vs in the question is 250 plus 250, that is 500. And this would have been under normal condition. But the thing is, we are using sinusoidal PWM here. And because we are using sinusoidal PWM with this amplitude of 0.8 and this amplitude 1, this will get multiplied by 0.8. Okay. This comes out to be 180 volt. 0.45 into 500 into 0.8 comes out to be 180 volt. And if you have the fundamental component of the voltage here, you can determine this value is the RMS value. Okay? So you can determine the RMS value of this current. It will simply be the voltage divided by the impedance. Impedance is under root of R squared plus XL square. Just a minute. So as I was saying, since you have the fundamental component of the voltage for here, you can determine the fundamental component of the current here. It will be simply voltage divided by the impedance. Okay, this is already given at the fundamental frequency of 100 Hertz. And the peak value will be that RMS value multiplied by root 2. Okay. Before I finish, I want to tell you one thing. In this book, pulse width modulation techniques are given, section 8.6. Out of which the first one is single pulse width modulation. I've seen a lot of questions in GATE on single pulse width modulation. Okay, you study this, this formula, equation 819. This formula will solve you a lot of questions in GATE. I'll have to search right now, so I'm leaving it. But single pulse width modulation, you get a lot of questions, and all those questions can be solved based on this formula. Okay? For example, how much should be the pulse width so that the third harmonic becomes 0? So the third harmonic here is 4 Vs by 3 pi sine 3 del by 2. So for this third harmonic to be 0, sine 3 del by 2 should be equal to 180 degrees. So like this you can solve. Sine 3 del by 2 should be 0, not 180 degrees. Sine 3 del by 2 should be 0. Sine 3 del by 2 should be equal to 0. That will be possible when 3 del by 2 is equal to 180 degrees, or del is equal to 180 to 360 divided by 3, that is 120 degrees. So a lot of questions can be solved like this. Okay. Okay, I think we can stop here. Chetan sir.
Yes, sir. So thank you, sir, for guiding our student as per the GATE exam is concerned. So I think this is your guidance is most valuable or helpful for our student. So thank you very much, sir.
Okay, before I leave, I just want to say one thing. There is no claim that you will be able to solve all GATE questions. All I have done is I've shown that the questions can be solved. I've told you the book to refer and the methodology that you should follow. Okay, I've just given you a start. The rest you have to do. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I leave now.
Okay, sir. Thank you.